Welcome back to the studio and online audience. This is the conclusion of our organizational day for the CROA Board of Directors. Glad to have you with us. Our plan is we're actually going to try and wrap up by 3:30 today. It's been a very long day, productive day. We've had our training with Tom Slayton for the board under the legal requirements. We've had an insurance update from Lou Byron. We have postponed and moved some other things around. What we'd like to do in this next half hour is to have an open dialogue about communication. In law school, we used to try and frame things up, and so that's probably my tendency. I want to just frame up this conversation a little bit and then open it up. There is no question but what communication has been a sore spot for us and for the community. And I think every member of this board and management recognizes we need to remedy that. There's no one size fits all solution probably, but there are a number of different communication methods, and we want to address a couple of them this afternoon. We're going to start by talking about email communication. Then we're going to talk a little bit about a general communication plan. We are not yet at the point of discussing how we deal with all of the various social media and operational aspects. Those are things we have to talk about, we have to get to. That isn't going to happen in a half-hour conversation. What I would like to do with the board's permission is to open this up to board comments first, and then when the board comments are concluded about these topics, open it up to residents if they'd like to speak on this so that we have that input since we're talking about communication, and then hopefully wrap us up at 3:30. Is that acceptable to the board? Okay. So let's begin by talking about in some ways, the most simple form of communication. Board members individually and collectively receive a substantial amount of email communication from residents, tenants, others that are interested in the community. I think the first question we want to address today is how do we want to reply to that kind of communication? So let me open that up to the board members for their ideas about how they would like to handle that. Want to jump in first? You've never heard so much silence from the board.
About communication.
I'll be happy to go, but I'm going to start with the broader.
Okay.
I think communication is too complicated to just try to deal with this form and then this form and this form. I think we need to attack communication more broadly. And the problem with board members responding to communications is you don't get a consistent answer, and you don't necessarily have consistent mediums and stuff like that. It was not in the budget, but my recommendation would be that we authorize management to hire somebody to help with communication. I mean, I'd really like to look at JR and his whole group and everything, and is everything aligned properly, or do we even need to rethink that about how we do it? I think if we don't have a consistent approach to how do we respond, we will always be chasing our tail. And you know, it doesn't matter if we're talking about social media, it doesn't matter if we're talking about an email. I heard there's something out there called TikTok and this boom and other things which I have no clue about. And everybody here laughs, but there are people in our community those things matter to. And I could be the most well-intentioned person in the world. I have absolutely no idea to do it. I don't have a Twitter account. I'm never going to have a Twitter account, and stuff like that. So my recommendation would be that we empower Lauren and management really on a post-haste basis to think about communication, but then we've got our detractors in the community. Let's invite them to participate. I don't want a standing committee, but there could be an ad hoc group. There could be a communication.
You said the word task force.
I won't say task, do not say task force, but there could be an ad hoc group or something that to actually help fashion what it should look like. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't want to communicate on the back porch. I have zero interest in helping Tim Somansky drive his marketing revenue. Then what are we going to do in other places to deal with social media? I think you would get a ton of residents who would go to a Facebook page if it was a town hall resident only type Facebook clicks. And I don't want to talk about we have a front porch. Let's deal with where people are at. So we may have a website, we could have a Facebook, we could have other things which I'll never use, but then we need a consistent strategy. The board should worry about what the message should be when we're communicating, not about communicating.
Right.
And, Lauren and her team should come back and say, they want to know what the heck you are really thinking is going on with lawn sports or this or that. And the message should come back from the board. But then that person should also coordinate with, you'll find it in the board meeting here, you'll find it in the video here or something like that. So it becomes a real professional endeavor that needs to be done right. And we need to spend the time and the money to solve it once, or we'll be plugging holes forever. And that's my.
So, couple thoughts. Going back 4 years, when we rewrote the management contract, we changed the language about communication from a PR perspective to being proactive, because I wrote that paragraph. That wasn't done too well by the prior management company. It was totally reworked for the current management contract. So proactive is essential. I think that while we currently have a half a dozen communications vehicles, we need to do more, because different approaches are important. And we need to attend to multi-generational, whether it's the 18-year-old or the 88-year-old who doesn't use TikTok. Or whatever. I think we need to be very clear with what our philosophy is about communication, that it is vitally important and it has been, if you will, in the backseat for a while. And we need a clear plan. So dovetailing what you just said, Brian, I think we should task management to coming up with that. I think we need to look at professional staffing for that, and come out as a top priority with communications. As a sidebar, I am currently reading 200 plus page proposals for the federal government on communication. And each of the plans are like 10 different strategies. And some of them are so reactive. It's like, well, if someone calls, it's like, you got to let someone know that there's a need out there or there's issues to do this and that. So there's a lot of good technology out there, and there's a lot of good approaches. And there's also some old standard standbys like a brochure or a flyer. So, but I think we need a clear plan, and I'd put that as a very top priority, staffing included.
Let me just, Cindy, you spoke about this morning. I'd like you to weigh in here as to your thoughts about where we go next.
Well, you hear a lot of comments that, when did this happen? When, how come I didn't know about this? I kind of like my idea of a daily briefing, just quick.
How would you distribute that?
But from the weekly
Email.
Okay.
People complain they don't get that now.
Well, but they will.
Put it in the plan.
Yeah, but, and I don't think this would be, just to write a bullet or two, like all you folks attend there's somebody from management at every single meeting. And just, if nothing else, just like the example I gave this morning was the special events committee met last night. They're beginning discussions on a mommy-daughter event. If you have any suggestions, please email so-and-such.
Click here to see the meeting.
If you would like to, if you would like to attend the next meeting, it will be so-and-such a day. Just even, just one or two things. Some of the discussions that we have during the regular board meetings, those could be those bullets for the next day.
So if I'm hearing properly, this is something that could be incorporated by management as part of the plan that's being discussed. So that's a specific, and that's really what I wanted to get at.
Yeah.
Celia, what's your take on it? You're known as the communicator.
Well, if they're gonna get somebody to be in charge of communications, that would be perfect for them to do what Cindy's suggesting. I also suggest that when we have our agenda posted for our meetings, that they go out, when the agenda comes out that Monday, that it goes out in a email flash.
Or it's in the daily briefing.
Or, well, no, I think that the agenda announcement should be separate. It should go out on Monday when it comes to the board members in the email flash. People liked that when it came out a few weeks ago, when it was, okay, here's the agenda, and they got it in their email. It's like, no excuse now. You have that. If the agenda's posted on front porch, back porch, it's on Celebration, it's
Portal.
everywhere. It's everywhere now.
Jim had raised his hand. Thank you. I want everybody to be heard on this. Go ahead.
I will just state the obvious. Whoever we hire needs to have a lot of experience in social media and in having a communication and strategy for social media, because I think we all realize that's where the biggest disconnect is between the audience that consume social media daily. It feels like they're the ones that don't feel like they're communicated with, although if you read social media, you're able to hear that. So I think we want to make a big point of that. I like the idea of having a Facebook group. I think when we do that, it should be started by the person we hire to do that and be run by them.
We do have a Facebook group and a Twitter account.
But it's not private to residents.
No.
We're talking about actually private
Private
residents.
I want to go to Bill, then I'll come to you.
Right. Well, my personal experiences, because the first thing I heard was there's no transparency. We don't know what's going on. Some of the things I didn't understand why people didn't know, because the information was readily available, but not all the information. And I'll use pickleball as the example, because I saw the task force reports from last summer and fall. And then I knew that there was board action last month, and I couldn't really connect how we got from September to February with a paper trail. But I know that it all happened and it was all above board and it was all there. It's just that there's no clear line for people to say, well, why are we doing pickleball? Can't say, well, there's a folder on the line and it's going to be the meeting notes in there. There's going to be the relevant board agenda in there. And it's all, so if somebody wants the story, the whole history, it's available. And the same for anything else, particularly, big things we're doing planning and stuff. The other thing is, to again, make sure that the correct information is being presented. Again, whether it's on Facebook or on the website or wherever we put it, is frequently asked questions, which has to be curated. And of course, the answers have to be correct answers. But certainly, again, if somebody has a question and somebody else who knows the subject matter answers it, and it's there, and that should, again, require some curation. Assuming that the answer is correct, then there should be, again, pickleball, lawn sports, community center, again, where somebody who's interested in that particular subject can just go to it. And
Kind of like a chronological history.
well, yeah, but sub-sorted. Like
Yeah,
the
but a brief
government
thing,
website
yeah.
where that's all they do is chronological. And of course, it's a massive problem to find the question
Right,
already
but on
answered.
pickle, whatever.
Yeah.
Brian, did you have something else?
Yeah, when I want to communicate with my grandkids, I text them.
Yeah.
And so I think Cindy's idea of a daily communication is fine, but I don't think it ought to be just an email blast. I think we ought to find the capability to do an email blast and a text. And we will reach people the age of my daughter, my son, and my grandchildren, and they will actually read it. And to Cindy's point, it doesn't need to be long. It could be brief. If we have the technological capability to do an email blast and a text, and that also could be then how we deal with some of the noise, because we could find nonsense online and we could say, no, the answer really is this. And we could answer some questions the next day at the end of the day, just to do, here's an email blast and a text and kind of where we're at, a daily briefing.
So So piggyback on that, when I'm at Food Truck Friday and having people signing up for the Friday Flash, maybe
Get their
moving forward, if we decide to go the texting route, have them sign up with where they want the text sent to. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, people,
Yeah.
everybody's got a cell phone.
Yes.
Everybody checks their text messages. Well, they
No,
got
I'm
an email or
saying-
they got a text phone. They will have one or the other.
Yes,
Oh,
so that's a good thing for people to come to
So
Food
let
Truck
me-
Friday.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
So let me summarize, and then are there any comments? We get anyone who wants to speak?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. You want to add
I
something?
just, two quick things.
Okay.
One place to have like a deep dive is My Documents in the portal. I think the portal also has, how do you want us to communicate to you? And what are the addresses and phone numbers to communicate to you? So I think we want to keep encouraging people to sign on to the portal and
Yeah.
let us know how, what's best way to communicate with them. And in terms of QA and curating that, on our website now, it's not very good. So I just happen to know that the technology committee has been talking about a chatbot that would use that same curated Q&A to where people could type something in on the website in a little
Get an answer.
chat box and get an answer.
I want to summarize what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong. What I hear is that we want to direct management to prepare a communications plan that would include a staff member, a newly added staff member. We're not trying to add responsibilities to somebody already in place. And that management plan should include the following things, but not limited to them. It should be proactive communication that's multi-generational. It should include a discussion of email and text, perhaps in the form of a daily briefing, perhaps special communication for agendas and special links to meetings. That the individual hired for I'm going to call it a comms director, would have social media expertise, and would have responsibility for the existing face group or to create a new Facebook group or to set the parameters for that. And that within our existing portal and website, that we would look to have not only FAQs, but a very clearly defined paper trail on significant projects and material. Did I leave anything out?
Well, I would hope they could actually like show links to board minutes or links to board videos, like it was discussed between
Right.
minutes 52 and 60 on this.
Sure,
Yeah.
and I think that makes perfect
That's why I
sense.
say curate, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of links
That's a great
here
word.
and it's.
Yeah.
It's implicit in what you were saying, but using multiple approaches, like redundancy.
Okay.
So, and then as part of the plan, again, what is the underlying part, the philosophy? I mean, part of philosophy is proactive, but what are some other things that are important? That it's honest, that it's timely.
Yeah.
Those are part of operational principles before the actual plan.
And,
And something that David said that wasn't in what you just read off was even brochures.
okay.
Yeah,
So written
that's
communication.
multiple strategies.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
but he listed
Yes.
several things, but I mean, I think that that's important to some people.
And if I may, pushing the envelope with technology beyond Facebook. I mean, nothing about Facebook, but pushing technology.
And what if the brochures could be Celebration Technology and put everything in there? Well, you know how
No,
to
yeah,
sign up, but I mean.
Okay.
You click on it, you have a video.
Okay, here it is. Losing control of the meeting.
Gotta be a tyrant, gotta shut them down.
Whatever. Yes, Mr. Kensel.
Well, first of all, I'd have a question for Lauren. Does this make sense to her?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
And
I'm getting there. And a deadline. Those two things I think have to be discussed. So we'll get there in 1 second. Celia?
I was just wondering if with all of this that we're coming up with, until they hire someone, or maybe the person that gets hired can work with our technology committee
Yeah.
to move this forward.
I would think so.
That's a good
Because
idea.
they're the
That's a good
experts
idea.
in
Right, right.
technology.
I can't really say because I'm no longer
Yeah,
part of
so
that
just don't
committee.
say.
That's a good idea.
Then,
Don't
but
say.
I said it,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. All right, so now, Lauren, I would like to get a sense of whether you think that's feasible and also what time frame you think you can do that in, because if we don't have a deadline on this, we're not going to make much progress.
It's certainly feasible. It's something that I've discussed with both Roger and Stacy and Amber a little bit. before we were passed on to Roger. So certainly feasible and already being discussed at the management level. In terms of timing, can I give you a response on Wednesday at your board meeting? Because I need to talk to onboarding in terms of when they think we could actually get this, because we have to create the job description, get it posted, all that. And then once we onboard that person, they would really, I would suggest, be the ones to work with the board and the community about setting up this strategy moving forward.
And does this strategy seem feasible to you? Have we given you enough ideas and things to work on? And I want to say, this is the model that I'm hoping that we can reach as a board, where we offer high-level direction.
Yes.
We let management manage. We let management tell us what they can do and when they can do it, and then hold them accountable for that information in a fair way, so that we're not playing the gotcha game.
One thing I think it would be good, we could discuss this with a little feedback on next Wednesday's board meeting, but Lauren's written 2 community email blasts that have been very well received. I think it would be good to actually have a communication email blast, out of the new board conversations, blah, blah, blah. This is really
Highlights.
where we're headed. I mean, her words, however it's going to be laid out, people can solicit email responses,
it'd be
blah, 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 but it'd be a good thing to communicate, because otherwise we know they don't hear it.
Yeah, so just the last piece of this is that we all have different communication styles. Some of us are good writers, Dr. Anderson.
Yeah.
Some of us are video stars. Some of us are Facebook warriors. We have different modes, but ultimately we need a coherent approach to this.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go back for the last couple of minutes to my framing, which you hijacked. Thank you so much. Which is the first immediate problem that we have is how to respond to emails sent to the CROA board. And I want some resolution of that before we walk out of here today. How are we going to deal with that?
Well, I think that the new secretary should acknowledge receipt of said email and then, assure the resident that it is being sent to the appropriate person.
Yes.
And you will be hearing back, and I think we should give them a reasonable time, maybe it's 72 hours, maximum 72 hours. But within that 72 hours, if for some reason it can't be answered, then somebody needs to check back with them and saying, so sorry, so-and-so's on vacation, or,
Right.
just something, so it doesn't just dangle and they don't get.
Let me add one complication. Someone sends an email to Cindy Swisher, not to the whole CROA board, but it's a CROA item. What do you do with it at that point?
Forward it to the CROA board.
Is that what we want to do?
I was gonna have
Yeah, go ahead.
because of
Or I.
comment, because of what, David and I has said, that some things are just, you gotta go talk to the tech committee, you gotta go talk to this committee. Perhaps, and rather than bury the person who's gonna get all these, that we perhaps insert ourselves and copy. So that,
Copy the board.
Well,
I don't know.
so there's 2 ways we've done this.
Celia, I mean, I
Yeah,
don't.
there's 2 ways we've done this. I think that it is, personally, I think it's perfectly appropriate for an individual board member to respond to that kind of a query without having to copy the entire board.
Right.
It's just, there's a certain level that we would trust that we are capable of knowing what's in our wheelhouse and what's not, right? And that if something requires broader involvement of the whole board or knowledge of the whole board, send it to the whole board. But if it's something that as you've described, I don't know that I need to read your email to that resident. What does that add? What's the value add there, right?
Right, no, I totally agree. And on the other hand, Celia doesn't need to be buried with
Correct.
7 different streams coming
Well, we
in.
have 2 different problems. We have the ones that go to the CROA board, and then we have ones that'll be addressed to each of you individually, and each of us. And so that's why I was trying to frame it up. What do we want to do with CROA board first, and then what do we want
Have
to do
her
with the
respond and refer it to the appropriate source.
Go ahead.
Can I add something to that,
Sure.
so that there is visibility to the whole board? Maybe we create a log of those emails somehow that has a brief description so that we can kind of know who's talked about what.
How would we do that?
I don't know,
I just mean, is it?
let's talk to the tech committee and see
Okay,
what
all right.
technologies to that, but
I'm not wild about spending a lot of time logging emails, but
I understand that. Could be just copying a particular mailbox or something like that. I just,
Interesting.
what if someone asks you a question and you respond to it and I don't know it? I'd rather know that, right? And I guess this is especially germane to both Bill and I at the beginning, that we kind of are able to do that. That's my thinking about it, is I'd like to go in and review what discussions about over email that we've had with the residents.
Interesting. Yeah, okay. Bill, Brian, were you gonna say that? No.
It's easy to just hit CROA board. I mean, and then people make a decision whether they want to read it or not. Because we're gonna have to get through a period while we're making a transition. If you're gonna hire somebody, get them up to speed, it's gonna be a 3-month period.
So if
we're
I'm
gonna-
gonna answer an email from a resident as Celia, the secretary, I'm gonna CC the CROA board.
Well, I think you should use some common sense. If somebody says,
Yeah.
what time is the meeting?
Yeah.
It's 6
Is there
PM.
a
No, you don't
board?
need to copy
Yeah,
the
I know,
board.
I understand.
No, I was trying to,
Yeah.
Substantive issue.
Yeah.
Right.
But if it has to do with management or anything that's,
Project or.
yeah.
But you're
It has to
basic-
go to the whole
But you're
board.
basically referring it to the right source.
Right.
And I would err on the side of over communication. We'll be coming up with a plan and then we'll revise.
Okay. So what we're saying is we'll just hit CROA board to copy. People can choose to read or discard or do what they want. And that we'll direct Celia as the secretary to respond to resident communication with a reply that we've received it and then forward it as she sees fit or she requests help from somebody else to tell her.
And depending what kind of a question that is,
Uh-huh.
that could possibly be the following day's daily briefing. If it's something that, maybe there's
Generic
a
to
lot of,
larger.
yeah, a lot of people,
once we got someone to do it, yeah.
exactly.
To Jim's point, maybe Celia then just on an informal basis, ad hoc basis, starts a kind of a log. 80% of the questions have been on X.
Again, if they're
Informal.
informational, what should actually at some point be curated into a FAQ.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think she needs to do that.
Right.
Right, but if it's an issue that we're dealing with, the decision that's coming up, whatever.
Or a management issue or.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to know about those.
So I'd err on the side of over communication to start.
I agree.
And then revisit.
Once I think a good time to revisit is when we get the
Exactly.
employee, right?
What about social media?
I think we're going to be moving pretty quickly with a communications plan. I think that's the.
Yeah, I think we need a plan before we get into.
Quickly is like,
It's a,
Well, no, it's gonna be all over social media this weekend, all kinds of things. Are we going to pretend that it's not, I mean, I don't mean that to sound ugly. I mean, we're either gonna deal with social media or we're going to ignore it and get cartoons in different ways. What's our strategy?
I think we need to be more planful with it.
And I think mine going on and dealing with pickleball probably saved us all a lot of grief. I mean, I don't think we can ignore social media.
No.
I think we get killed. Like when you started putting stuff up and then didn't allow comment, you got killed. I mean, we'd be better off just taking the comments and.
well, when we post the agenda on the front porch and back porch, leave the commenting open. People can comment, and what happens is it does take a life of its own. But we don't have to
We can
answer.
sit there and figure out if there's a question we want
Right.
to answer.
Mhm.
If somebody's gonna go out there and say these bums gonna do anything with communication, we could say, hey, between 3 and 3:30, we just talked about communication a lot.
This is an interim approach.
Yeah, it's an
correct?
interim
Now, this is an interim approach, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's gonna be there
On
this weekend.
Wednesday, management's going to give us a time frame. We're going to be able to deal with it. The question is, what do we do between now and Wednesday? Some of us are not on Facebook. Some of us don't have accounts there. Some of us have been blocked over the years. So we don't have the ability to have a terrific response for the next few days. That's just the honest
That's okay.
answer.
But we're being
That's
very
okay.
honest.
So I guess what I would say is if any board member feels that they want to go on any of those social media to say, we are dealing with this and we will have an answer from management on Wednesday, join us on Wednesday, that's a perfectly acceptable thing to do. I think it's also acceptable to say, if anyone on social media would like to contact a board member to talk individually about these things, it's easy enough to do that via email or text or whatever it might be. I know that I don't turn down coffee with anyone. I've learned that Bill is a coffee snob. among other things. I suspect everyone on this board would be willing to talk to people about the concerns they have. The problem is that I don't know any of us that have so much free time that we can be full-time comms directors. So for this weekend, I think we just have to do the best we can and make it as clear as we can that we are working towards a solution. I don't know what else to do.
And I think I'm fine with that. I'm happy to tell them, hey, we talked about it between 3:30. We're gonna be addressing a lot on communication.
Top priority.
Jim's I know Jim's out there, Celia's out there. It's easy enough to say, we know what we're doing, or we haven't ignored it.
Right.
It-
Any
it-
comments on that?
Yeah, no comments.
Okay.
I was gonna say too, and I do look at the Friday flash, but is there a place on there that shows what the CROA email address is?
It's on the
On the
bottom.
flash, no, but it's on the, well, it's on some of the flash
But I mean,
announcements.
I think it should be
Like a banner.
like a banner or, or something at the top, so if people do want to, they don't have to go searching for it. It's right there.
Yeah, it should be
All right,
right, like
let me-
it's on top.
Let me wrap up.
I'm sorry.
Let me wrap up. I thank you for this conversation. These have been long needed conversations. On our detailed agenda, obviously, we had activities through June 30th and for all of 2022. We decided that we would postpone that discussion until the 9th or the 16th. It looks like will be our second board meeting of the month of March. We will get to those items, but we wanted to give them our full attention. Thank you all for a long day, for good conversation, for honest conversation. Thank you for those of you who have been participating online or will be watching and the recording. We are going to strive, I think, as a board to continue to move the community forward, to do the right things for the entire community, to listen to you, but ultimately to make the decisions that are in the best interest of this community based on our own sense of what is right and how we move forward. You may not always appreciate or agree with those decisions, but I think they're all made in good faith, and I'm very excited to work with each of you. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Stand adjourned. Thank
So
you
we
very
can't
much.
say anything else now?
Thank you for a good start.